Hello and welcome to CNET. I'm Ann Danahy, and today we're talking with candidates on the ballot for the fall 2023 election. Right now we're talking with candidates running for Bellefonte Borough Council. Joining us now is Randy Brachbill, Republican nominee for Bellefonte Borough Council Ward 2. Hi Randy, thank you so much for coming in to talk with us today.
Good morning, Ann. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you guys do this for us.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and why you're running for re-election?
Well, I lived in Bellefonte most of my life. I lived outside of town growing up, but we've been in Bellefonte since we were married, like 45 years. My wife's name's Kathy, and I went through JCs, and they kind of gave me like the inspiration to try something else. So I had aged out of JCs at that point. And about maybe 10 years later, decided I wanted to get involved with a little bit of politics, and I thought the borough was a good way to do it. And so, but I enjoy it. I don't, sometimes you have some difficult decisions to make, and you just have to figure out what's going to be best for the residents. And that's kind of why I try to hang in there.
Can you tell us about your approach if you do think that there is a difficult decision to make? Is there any examples of that?
Well, the one was where there was a little bit of confusion about us getting out of the Spring Creek watershed. And that kind of blew up. A lot of people came in to discuss it. And we knew that before the meeting even started where we were going with it. It was just one of those things that we had to work out between some council members. And so that kind of got overblown more than it should have, really. We have other choices where, like chickens, people wanted chickens. We did that years ago. And I just talked to somebody yesterday that said, we can only have 4 chickens. Is there any way we can raise that? I said, yes, I can look into it for you. So just helping people out, I think, is what I enjoy doing. So.
What would be your priorities if you were reelected? What do you see as the Bellefonte Borough Council priorities for the upcoming year?
Well, we're trying to do our budget right now, and that's the main priority now. And I think the other priorities are kind of like what comes in from businesses or residents or other, maybe something through the state type things that we might have to discuss. But I think we're a small town, and we don't get into a lot of major issues, but there are sometimes streets needing repaired or things like that we have to talk about, and if we need to move some money around within that department.
How do you approach the budget and the question of wanting to be able to provide services, but I'm guessing not wanting to have to raise taxes?
We try not to raise taxes. I'm not sure where we're going to be this year because things just keep blowing up as far as the money go and how much it increases. So we'll have to, normally what we do, and we've already started the last 2 meetings, we've talked about budget. We don't approve anything at that point, but we talk about it. So then come toward the end of, I think the second meeting of December, we have to vote it one way or another. But most of that, through that time, gets worked out, and we understand what's going on and where the money's going to go, and that'll tell us what type of an increase, if we need an increase, what it would be.
And are you hearing anything from voters about that, from residents of Bellefonte? You mentioned that sometimes you do hear from people in the borough.
No, not really. I mean, because there's small increases that we do. I think if there was one last year, it was like 0.5, something like that. So it wasn't much. We do enough to cover what we think our costs are going to be.
In August, Borough Council voted to suspend its climate action plan and its environmental advisory board. Where do you stand on that?
I helped with that when we did it in, I believe it was 18 or 19. And when we first got onto that, that's when we brought in our EV chargers.
Electric vehicle, right?
Yeah, right. And that was working out fine, but the problem was we weren't getting anything out of it monetarily wise. And at that point, because we used grant funds, I don't think we were allowed. But now we are, and we moved that to like a $3 charge to park there and also charge your car. And then, so that money gets deviated around, and we have to share some with the state. And we're not going to make a lot of money, but it's going to at least cover our costs.
What about the broader issue, though, of having long-term environmental goals and the climate action plan?
Well, the climate action plan, to me, was confusing. When we really sit down and look at that, at one point it's talking about Bellefonte and what Bellefonte needs to do and meet the certain deadlines and what that, I don't remember what they all are, but I think there's one in 2032 or 33, and then you go to 2040 and then 50. And we have no idea where Bellefonte's going to be at that point. And my concern was if we're putting money into it, what are we getting out of it? What are we going to see? And really, when we talk about the environment, Bellefonte doesn't have the manufacturing jobs or plants and factories that we used to have 30, 40 years ago. So I'm wondering, with all that going away, how's that affected us so far? And I know I've had a conversation with Don Holderman, and he's been on with the borough, I'm thinking 15 to 18 years, and he said, and we were talking about this climate action plan, and he said, we've been doing this since he came on board, and anytime there was a chance to look at something that environment related, we usually try to get something in there. We didn't talk about it a lot, but we do it. And I think my view is we need to let Bellefonte be Bellefonte. I don't want to get in a situation where we're committed to something, and what happens if we don't make it at that point? And that's the problem. And it switches back between the borough and the state, and that's where it kind of gets confusing with this environmental part. And I think even the current governor's having issues with some of that that Governor Wolf had put in.
Are there any particular steps you think the borough should take instead of doing that, instead of having an environmental advisory board or a climate action plan?
We haven't talked about it since we stopped, decided we weren't going to maintain and manage that plan. But I think we'll take any opportunity that comes in front of us that we think would work. We'll probably talk about it and put it up for a vote.
And how about on the EV charging stations? Do you think the borough should continue to have those?
I don't see a purpose of removing them. We did have issues with two of the chargers in one lot that got damaged in a storm, and we fixed them, and 2 weeks later they got hit again. And I think we resolved that issue. And at that point now, we have an investment in them, and it doesn't make sense to take it out as long as, again, we're going to cover our costs, and so I don't see a problem with it. The problem I do kind of am concerned about is if we want to put more out, we really don't have a lot of spaces to do that, and we don't want to give up spaces for EVs in town and they don't get used. That's the other concern. So.
Well, that's a perfect segue to another question, is the question of parking and whether there's enough parking. Periodically, it can be difficult to find parking spaces depending on what's going on. Is there anything you think that Borough Council should do to try to address that?
Well, we've tried a couple times with county because they're the ones who bring the traffic in. But you can come down there on let's say a Wednesday when they're holding court or whatever, they're trying to bring people in for jury duty or whatever. It's busy, but by 11 or 12, it's not busy. So if people know what's going on downtown, maybe they wait later to come in. We still have folks who live in the apartments in downtown, and they park on the street, or they have a permit in a municipal lot where they can park. But yeah, it's Mondays and Tuesdays are pretty light. Thursdays and Fridays are also pretty light. So I don't think we have as big a problem as people might think we do, but sometimes it does occur. So.
A big project proposal that has been under discussion and is in the works is a band shelter that a community group is looking at building in Talleyrand Park. Do you support that, and what do you think needs to happen with that project?
Well, their budget, they got it like $1 million from Benninghoff, and I know they've raised some money, but they're not to where they want to be, and we have just sent some legal papers to the committee to take a look at, and we have some even before we sign a lease, we want to make sure that A to Z they're covering what needs to be done. But I think one of the concerns is when you look around the different areas, like in Hollidaysburg or another, I can't remember the other place in Pennsylvania, but they have band shells. And they're paying, when they put them in, they were $325,000. So I don't understand a lot, well, why are we looking at millions of dollars to put a band shell in? To me, that it's not going to be a year-round usable place as far as music coming in or any kind of thing for the stage. I don't know how they'll work with that. We had a couple other ideas when we started talking with them, and the Plaza Theater that was a movie place. The owner of that died, but I think the daughter took over for it. We haven't really had a discussion with them, but we thought, well, wouldn't that be great if we could open that back up as not a movie theater, but as a stage for people to come in and do, whether it's music, plays, whatever. You could do the same thing. So.
We have about a minute left. Is there anything else you'd like to say to voters out there?
I appreciate the voters, the residents that I work for. Those are the ones that keep me in office. And I told Cindy coming in, I said, last 2 days I've put on 20,500 steps. And so I still have about halfway to go yet to put my information out. And even though nobody's running against me, I still feel like I need to do that. That's my job. I need to get myself out there. And I go around and I don't necessarily knock on doors. I really don't want to bother anybody, so I just put my stuff on the porch and hopefully I get a call or whatever, and if somebody needs something. But I'm looking forward to the next 4 years.
Well, Randy Brachbill, thank you so much for coming in to talk with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We've been talking with Republican candidate Randy Brachbill, who's running for Bellefonte Borough Council Ward 2. All candidates on the ballot were invited to join us at CNET. I'm Ann Danahy. Thank you for watching, and please remember to vote in the election November 7th.